Banner Knowledge Bowling. I'm Steve. Let's talk bowling. This is a tricky subject for me. This is one that I get lots of questions on, and it says, Steve, talk about the release. And the release is such an important part of our game, and being able to manipulate the release is a great tool to have in your tool chest to adjust to different lane conditions. But why is it tricky? It's tricky because we have to deal with something called, and this is the biggest word I know, proprioception. And all proprioception is what I think I'm doing in an athletic position and what's actually happening. And they're usually two different things. Quick example, if you have a backswing that goes to your shoulder and I let you throw and get warmed up, and I tell you on this next backswing, I don't want it to go above your waist. And you're going to walk up and you're going to throw this shot. It's going to feel awkward. And you're going to come back and I'm going to say, how did that go? And you're going to like, wow, that was nuts. I barely got it to my waist. I dropped it. I was out of time. I didn't like it at all. When we look at that on video, you're going to notice that that backswing went almost to your shoulder. It may have been a couple of inches lower, and that's your proprioception at work. What you thought happened, didn't get above my waist, was not what actually happened in the delivery of your bowling ball. So when we talk about the release is tricky because I like to use the clock as a way to get my mind to think about how I want to release the ball. Now, when most people think of a clock, they think of a one-dimensional picture. And as we know, the bowling ball has, width and length and depth to it. So for me, the clock has 3 dimensions. So I have said in the past, I always like to think about my ring finger as the trigger of my release. And where is my ring finger at the bottom of my swing when I'm releasing the ball? And the way I like to look at it is, I like to think of my ring finger at like maybe 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, maybe even 3 o'clock at that release point, to start the release point at the bottom of my swing. And when I do that, I want my ring finger to go up to about 1 o'clock, maybe 12 o'clock. And for me, what that means is I go through the bowling ball, not around it. Now, some people hear, boy, if you start your ring finger at 6 o'clock and you go up to 1 o'clock, you're going to release it that way. And that would be true if the clock was one-dimensional. But remember, the clock, in my mind, goes forward through and down the target line through the ball towards the pins. So if I start and my thumb comes out and my ring finger is at 6 o'clock, and I get the thumb out of the ball and I go up through the ball to 1 o'clock, I get this kind of release. Now, the way we would teach that in coaching is if you would take a football, put your fingers where the laces are, and throw it underhand. If you can throw it with a great spiral, that's the kind of release that we're looking for. If you twist your hands around a one-dimensional clock, the football will come out and wobble. So we want to come through the ball at the bottom of the swing with the ring finger. Now, why do I have these different starting positions? Because we can come up the back of the ball and have a more forward rolling ball, for example, and that's going to give us one look on the lane. Or we can come all the way around the ball, try to get all the way around on the side, have much more spin, if you will, and that ball is going to certainly get down the lane further and probably when it finds the friction, hook a little sharper. And I want to be able to do the forward roll, the in-between roll, and the spin roll, and I want to be able to put that into play whenever I want. So when you're thinking about the release, the first thing that we have to fight is your proprioception. What you think is happening is probably different than what is actually happening. Use video. If thinking about a clock and where your ring finger is helps you produce a forward roll, a three-quarter roll, and more side roll, awesome. You got a tool, put it in your tool chest and practice it. If that doesn't work, there's some other things to think about. Again, I like to think of the ring finger leading the shot. That gets your hand behind the ball. You've heard people talk about working the inside of the ball. All of that is great. Some people think about the forearm leading the shot, and that's what makes sense to them. What is most important is that when the thumb exits the ball, everything you're doing is going towards the pins. That transfer of energy, we want all that power to land like an airplane through that bowling ball and go right towards the pins. We don't want the ball going straight up in the air. We don't want power going up towards the ceiling, and we certainly don't want to drop the ball straight down into the lane and robbing of power. Again, bowling is about knocking sticks down that are heavy and far away. And if we can get you to most effectively transfer that power from your steps through your release into the lane and towards those pins, you're going to get more strikes. Hope this helped. What's your tips for great releases, and how do you work on your different releases so that you have more tools in your tool bag? Put them in the comments below. Thanks a lot.